And welcome to the webinar, which is known as Embracing Change, Leading Schools in 21st Century. Uh, First of all, welcome to all the panelists. I would like to first of all introduce Mr. Bhavin Shah, who's the CEO of Education World and leading figure in K-12 education innovation in India. He brings industry-wide experience in school rankings, education reform, and leadership engagement. Also, very proud to introduce Mr. Vinay Pandey, who's the Director of Professional Development at Boarding Schools Association of India, BSAI. He has actually worked extensively in training and mentoring school leaders across the country. And with all due respect, I would like all the audience, to introduce for our IIHEd school, who's first of all, I would like to introduce the Deputy Director and the Professor Mosmi Mukherjee, and followed by Professor Deepak Mohan, who's an Associate Professor, and Professor Dr. Reshma, who's an Assistant Professor in IIHEd, and followed by the Adjunct Professor of Practice, Professor Dr. Saroj. So I request all the audience to please hear out yourself first, and then if you have any queries or questions in the meanwhile, you can raise your hands or put your queries in the Q&A. We'll be happy to answer. And over to you, Professor Mosmi.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion on leadership in the educational context, K through 12 schooling context. And thank you all to the listeners who have arrived here. I have been asked to specifically talk about the challenges of educational leadership and why uh, why we need to think about leadership development programs. Now, those of you who are in leadership positions in various institutions, you would know it from your own personal experience. Leadership, educational leadership versus teaching in the classroom, these are two very, very different things, right? Here within the Indian context and most contexts of the global South, we really don't have the tradition of a really formal leadership training. With educational leadership training, most of the time we get placed into leadership positions based on years of experience as teachers in school and head teachers. And once we get placed in these leadership positions, we realize that the task that we have to perform oftentimes our experience, even if we have had 10 years, 15 years experience, it has really not prepared us enough to deal with the multifarious challenges that you have to deal as educational leader in a school. Because as a classroom teachers, the primary stakeholders with whom we are interacting is the students in the class. At max, with the parents during parent-teacher meetings and with the school principal and the school board members, right? But once you become a leader, once you are a principal or a headmaster or mistress, then the task becomes manifold. You have to engage with multiple stakeholders within the institution and outside the institution. You have to manage financial matters. You have to engage with public policy because schools work within a particular socio-cultural context. There are legal matters, policy matters. As an educational leaders, we are called upon to look after and think about. So there are multiple issues that we need to consider. We need to also take into consideration our role as educational leader in developing also the skills and knowledge base for our both teaching staff and non-teaching staff. And we are here in the 21st century with the very fast changing scientific and technological developments. We have to constantly, all of us, we have to be lifelong learners and upgrade our own knowledge and skills, as even as teachers, as non-teaching staffs, and even as educational leader. As a leader, all the more we are responsible to also look after and make provisions for professional development of our teaching and non-teaching staff. At the same time, we are also responsible for our student well-being. And particularly, we have today the head of the boarding school associations here, particularly in residential boarding schools, the need for providing pastoral care and well-being and looking after the well-being of students becomes even more important, because for day schools, it's just during fixed hours during the day, we are responsible for looking after the kids and their well-being. But in a boarding school, it's a 24/7 responsibility to provide the kind of pastoral care and well-being that the students need, and we are responsible to provide that care to the children. So there are multiple aspects into which an educational leader needs to put her mind into. And this can be very challenging and daunting. A lot of the time, many educational leaders, once they get placed in this position, they learn on the job, literally. Okay, in many Western countries and even in many East Asian countries, as I have come to know over the years, they have developed very well developed programs for training educational leaders. We have not had that tradition, and we this by designing this online MA program in educational leadership and governance, we have made an attempt at the International Institute for Higher Education Research and Capacity Building at Hope Jindal Global University to create not just a space for professional development for leaders, educational leaders who are already in leadership positions, but those who are aspiring to be in those positions, not just for India, but also even beyond India. And this is our hope that through this program, we are going to be able to empower you to deal with this multiple challenges and responsibilities that you have to deal with as an educational leader. And we are also hoping that this is going to be also a platform for you to share with each other some of the principles over the years that I have personally interacted and worked with here through the institute at OP Jindal. We have been organizing principals conclaves, educators colloquiums, and they are doing very, very impressive work. They are, I should say, these people are born leaders without any formal training as educational leader. They might have been trained as a geography teacher, science teacher, math teacher, but once placed in those leadership positions, some of them are doing wonderful work, which we can all learn from. So we hope that through this program, educators, educational leaders will also get an opportunity to share each other's practices, the things that they are already doing in their own institutions, and will get an opportunity to also learn from each other. So we hope that this is going to also become a platform for co-creating knowledge in the domain of educational leadership, whereby we can learn from each other how we can be a more effective educational leader. That's all from my side. I'm now looking forward to questions from the audience and hear from my other colleagues. Over to you, Vijay.
I believe there is an audience named Daniela.
maybe should we keep the audience questions? Maybe Vijay, keep taking the questions, but maybe we should allow the speakers to speak one after the other, and then we can take all the questions
No, not
at
a
the
problem.
end.
Yes, yes,
That will help us keep to the time.
yes.
Okay, great.
I would
Hello.
request Professor. Yeah.
Saroj, Professor Saroj, then
Okay.
Professor Saroj, if you could
Yes.
share your stories from the field.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Moshmi. And good evening to everybody who's present here, my colleagues and educators, and anyone who's interested in education. I want to start with an imagery. I invite you to picture this. 8.23 billion people on this planet. Each one of us a unique combination of nationality, language, ethnicity, religion, culture, tradition, ability, interest, belief, aspiration, and worldview. This isn't just statistics, it's a miracle. Human diversity is what makes us beautiful, complex, and dynamic. Without it, we would just be no different from robots rolling off an assembly line, predictable, identical, soulless, right? So human beings, human diversity actually is an amazing thing. And yet, here we are in a world where difference is often seen not as richness, not as a blessing, not as a boon, but as threat. Let's be honest, we are living in a time where hatred, violence, and war have become disturbingly normalized. The language of us versus them is everywhere, from politics to policy, from media to schools, whether it's based on race, religion, gender, language, class, or nationality, differences have become boundaries. Sometimes literal walls are built. Other times the walls are invisible, built from prejudice, stereotypes, and fear. I want to talk about this kind of scenario that you find in the present day society, in the schools. But where do these walls begin? They exist everywhere, that's true, but where do they begin? Not in the parliament, not just in the social media. They begin much earlier in classrooms, in playgrounds, in the casual remark that a child hears, that's not how we do it here, or you don't belong, or don't play with that kid, he's different. So children don't come into the world hating or excluding others. We teach them to. They learn it from us. And in doing so, we raise adults who go on to perpetuate hatred and violence, excluding individuals, communities, and sometimes even entire nations. And that's why we truly want to, if you want to build inclusive societies, we must begin with inclusive schools. And it is so heartening to see that so many schools are already practicing it. But that's not enough. We need to do it at a much larger scale. Now, many schools, when we talk about inclusive education, they panic and say, but inclusion is so hard. It is too idealistic. I would argue the opposite. Having been in the schools for more than 40 years in various roles, I see that if we have the intention to make this happen, we can do it. Inclusivity is not ideal. It is a necessity in today's world. Carol Tomlinson, the guru of inclusion um, as a leading voice, let's say, in education. She said it the best. The idea of a homogeneous classroom is a myth. The idea of homogeneous classroom is a myth, meaning in any given classroom, as normal as you can have, without any child with disability or child from another socioeconomic background, you will find children learn differently. Each child differs from the other because how they learn, what they value, how they express themselves, what language they speak at home, how their brains work, and what they believe in and what their dreams are. They are all different. And research also shows that it is very powerful when we start including everybody, when we start respecting everybody, that we are not doing just the morally right thing, we are also being more effective. Inclusive schools foster higher engagement because students feel seen, they are engaged. That also reduces bullying and behavioral issues because empathy becomes part of the school culture. They promote better academic outcomes because teaching is differentiated. And perhaps most importantly, they teach children how to live in a diverse world. Inclusivity prepares students not just for exams, but for life. So in inclusive schools, children learn not just to tolerate differences, but to value them, to ask questions, not make assumptions, to listen and not to judge. This is the foundation of peaceful societies. You want less hate in the world? Teach inclusion starting from kindergarten. All right, let's break this down. Inclusion is not just about admitting a child with disability into a mainstream school. Inclusion means children with physical, sensory, or intellectual disabilities are not just present, not just admitted, but they are supported. Linguistic diversity is not silenced, but embraced. Cultural traditions are not hidden, but celebrated. Gender identities are respected. Socioeconomic differences are understood, not shamed. Emotional and mental health needs are not dismissed, but responded with care. Inclusive schools adapt to the child. Schools adapt to the child, not the other way around, which normally what we expect and what happens in the schools. So inclusive schools create policies, pedagogy, infrastructure, and above all, a culture that values every child as worthy, capable, and whole. So how do we build such schools? It begins with leadership. Inclusive school is, or inclusive education is not just a teacher's responsibility, it is a leadership choice. Leadership that believes that all children can learn, but not in the same way and not in the same day. Leadership that trains teachers in differentiated instruction, revises admission policies to reflect equity, encourages student voice and democratic classroom practices, creates safe spaces for dialogue around identity, rights, and justice. Leadership that actively listens to parents, caregivers, and community members from every background. And leadership that looks at the school and asks, who's not there? Who's missing? Whose stories are not being told? Whose needs are being ignored? This is the kind of courageous, compassionate leadership that makes inclusion real. Just a small story, as Maushami said, story from the field. I'll leave you with this story. There was once a little boy with a lazy eye. He wore thick glasses with that magnified one eye more than the other. So that made him shy, withdrawn, and he was often teased. One day during a school art competition, he created a drawing of a forest full of magical birds His trees were vibrant, his birds wild and colorful. It was brilliant. So when the principal visited the exhibition, and I have to say I was with the principal, she stopped in front of that artwork and asked the teacher, "Who made this?" The teacher said, "Oh, that's from that boy with the glasses. He doesn't talk much." The principal walked over to the boy and said, "You see the world so beautifully. I'm lucky to see it through your eyes today. And you should have seen the boy. That boy who was forgotten, who was pushed to the side, who was ignored, who was made fun of, he never forgot those words because at that moment, he belonged. Inclusion is that simple. It begins with being seen, being heard, and with that belongingness. So, an appeal to everybody, if you want to heal our divided world, let us begin where it matters most, in our schools. Let us move beyond tokenism, beyond mere celebration of festivals or inclusive slogans. Let us build our 21st century classrooms where every child knows that I'm welcome here, I matter here, I belong here. And that can only happen when school leadership leads the way. Because in the words of Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. Let us wield that weapon not with fear, but with hope, not with exclusion, but with embrace. Let us raise a generation that does not just tolerate difference, but cherishes it. Thank you. I'd love to have questions, but as you said, maybe later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Saroj. Vijay, would you now invite?
Mr. Vinay, I think.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. Vinay
Vinay,
Pandey.
to share a few little words.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So let me begin by first sharing with you all a few thoughts that came to my mind after listening to Professor Moshmi and Professor Saroj. Like they said, and one of them quoted that, are the leaders born or do the leaders evolve? It's been a dilemma. People have their own views. Some feel the leaders are born and some say they evolve. My personal opinion, my take on this is leaders evolve. You may have leadership traits in you, but it's through practice that leadership really flourishes. Let me also say that this leadership begins in the classroom. Now, the problems we are facing in today's time, especially I'm talking with the perspective towards Indian schools, the teachers are not given that kind of exposure. They're not given that kind of freedom to actually be aware of what's happening in these fields. It's been my own experience as a teacher first, later as the head of the school. And now, while I coordinate and conduct a lot of workshops for teachers and students, heads of schools don't really release teachers for workshops which are professional development workshops. The result is they may have theoretical knowledge about a lot of things, but when it comes to practical, the application part, they're missing. Let me give you an example. I may read a book and learn all the rules and regulations of, say, a game like cricket. But unless I enter the field, pick up the bat or the ball, I really don't know how those rules apply and what it is like facing a bowler coming to you and sending the ball at 120, 130 kilometers per hour. So the problem we are facing is that the teachers may be very willing to learn, but are the heads of schools really providing them with that kind of exposure? Now, this course, whatever I have understood so far, I think will be a wonderful opportunity for even young leaders to pick up a lot of traits. But eventually, like Professor Moshmi mentioned, that many of them actually learn the tricks and traits of being a leader only after assuming the responsibility. And that is actually causing a problem. I think a teacher has to learn and go through the entire process of leadership right from the time he or she starts teaching. It's not something you read from a book, attend a seminar or a webinar, and next day you are a good leader, right? It's possible by the time you really understand what leadership is all about, your tenure as the head of the school is gone. It's over. And the school and the children and everyone has really suffered. Uh, Also, important thing here is the sharing of the best practices. Now, I have been to schools abroad, and my experience has been that lots of schools I have visited abroad, the teachers are not shy of sharing the best practices. The schools are not shy of sharing best practices with other schools. In India, things are a lot better now, but the problem still exists. Most of the schools are still not very, very keen. They're reluctant to share best practices because there's so much of competition involved that if we let them know how this is done the best, will they become better than us? And this actually prevents or stops that knowledge, that information, or that best practice to be shared widely. Talking of the inclusive education, which Professor Saroj mentioned, I fully agree with her. I think that's the need of the hour. But my take on this is that the first lesson on this should actually begin at home. And I think the society is responsible here for really approving and supporting this. Because the schools, the school leaders, the teachers may do a lot of things in the classroom. But once the child is back home into the society where he or she lives, if these things are not approved and supported, I think it will really not work. Now, I'll come to a specific area which is very dear to me. And I think I see that in coming months or maybe a couple of years down the line, we will be able to have a specific program just focusing on pastoral care. My background has been residential schools all through. And in a residential school, I think the role of a pastoral team is very, very important. Like we always say in a residential school, the life actually begins after lunch. Now, I'm not saying that before lunch nothing concrete happens. You are going through the rigmaroles of a syllabus, whether it's a CBSE or the council syllabus. But when the child passes out of the school, maybe the child has got a 95, 97, and these days this like 99.75 seems to have become very common. But are they equipped? Are they ready to take on the challenges of the 21st century? Has the school or the parents or anybody given them the opportunity or the exposure to pick up those life skills? And my experience from residential school background is that the activities that we do post lunch actually give you an opportunity to learn lots of these life skills. Now, the point is somebody has to be with these children. Now, our time was very different. It's not that the parents didn't care about us, but then parents said a few things and the rest of it we had to manage on our own. Today, the children, the society is very different. Recently I was doing a workshop somewhere and I was just talking about the different categories of parents that we see today. So till recently, we heard only the tiger parenting. Then came the helicopter parents, the parent who would like to just hover around the child all the time. But even the helicopter parenting has become almost obsolete now. The latest is a drone parent because the drone parent wants to go everywhere, just not hover on top. And then you have lawnmower parents. They want to just ensure that the path in front of the child is you know, absolutely clear. There are no obstacles, no problems. What are they learning? So in a pastoral care, I think the teacher, the head of the school, a lot of things need to be learned. I just kind of put them all together. For example, today the focus on the special needs is very, very intense. But are the teachers equipped to really identify and implement a program if they are able to identify a child with the special needs? And is the school really earnestly going ahead in supporting that? Understanding adolescence. There are a lot of issues the children face in nowadays situation. Conflict management, emotional problems, identifying, are the teachers able to identify the signs and the symptoms of any issue, problem which is brewing up, the challenges which are being faced by the adolescents these days. Like social media is one of them. I'm saying it's a big challenge. We are just worried about how can we just stop the cell phone being with the child. But even if the child has the cell phone for half an hour, there's so much of exposure the children have through this. Is everything good? Unfortunately, no. Uh, Knowing about child rights and child protection acts. I mean, I have grown up as a teacher in schools where if a girls' team won a tournament, we would go and hug the team and say, "Well done, girls." Today, you got to be very careful as a teacher. On one side, the head of the school will say, you need to be very nice to the children, be with them, try to understand. But at the same time, the teacher has to be very careful about what he or she says or what he or she does. And are the teachers aware of these rules, regulations, POXO Act? So I think this again is an extensive work. And Professor Moshmi said in the beginning, there are so many other things the head of the school needs to do now, just apart from managing academics or discipline in the school. You have to deal with so many agencies outside. And if you're not aware of how does it function or how can you really work best with them, you're going to have a problem as the head of the school. And personal wellness. I mean, you dive head on into an issue and say, I'll give my time, my effort, my energy, everything. But are you losing something? Yes, you're losing your own health. You may be losing quality time with your family. I think that also needs to be really a part of the module, that how do teachers take care of, how do these young leaders or mature leaders take care of their own health, of their own life? Because we just can't let it go waste like this. And finally, something which is very important nowadays, managing parental expectation. Now, there was a time when I'm talking purely from a residential school point of view. A parent would admit the child in residential school and say, the child is under your charge. Please look after the child. Today, like I said, the parents wants to know the details every day, morning, afternoon, evening, and night. And they're not happy with one simple answer. There was a time where there was an injury to a child in the school. This parent would say, okay, you are best equipped to handle this. Your doctor will look after my child. Today, immediately the parent calls with a family doctor sitting next to the parent, maybe from miles away, dictating the school doctor to do what exactly needs to be done. Now, there are a lot of pressure on the school heads. Are these school heads who are taking on responsibilities now equipped to take on these challenges? So I think we need to have a program, a module where an exposure to these kind of situations is really made. And after doing a theoretical run through of all this, in my opinion, a practical exposure to these situations is very important. And we at the BSAI will be more than happy to actually give a platform, offer a platform where these people who are undergoing these programs can actually have a face-to-face interaction and have a real life situation experienced. And I think that is the best way forward in my personal view. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vinay. That was very insightful. I request Professor Reshma to share a few words.
Vijay, before Professor Reshma comes in, I just want to quickly address something Mr. Pandey just shared. Since we have incorporated it as part of our program, we actually have the kind of exposure you were talking about, not just theoretically learning, but actually doing something practically, we have created that kind of program structure also, and that's the reason the program we will also have a weekly live session, one-on-one interaction platform, an opportunity for those who will be enrolling for the course with the faculty and also with each other. And also as part of the course at the end, we also have a component of a capstone project. So the leaders, aspiring leaders, they'll be actually, doing, working, there is a research component to the training, actually conducting action research within their own institutions, or wherever they are connected through their work, and actually working on capstone projects. And we are going to also work with them, guide them through the process. So we have embedded that. So it's not purely theoretical learning. They are going to have practical learning
Wonderful.
through the course.
Thank you.
Over to you, Professor Reshma.
Thank you so much, Professor Moshmi. Good evening to all of you. We are indeed very happy to have all of you on this webinar. It's a real great feeling to see that so many educators are interested in this program. So the course that I'm going to talk about is technology, digital transformation and AI in education, right? So transformation, for me, education itself is a transformation. Yeah, so it brings great transformation in the society, in the individual, in total. So when it is added, the digital transformation is added to this criteria, we also see that, digital transformation is the need of the hour. If the students go out of the school, they have to be job ready. They have to be life ready. For me, life readiness is more important than being job ready. So as in the resumes, previously they would write having computer skills. Very soon the time would come that we have to add having AI skills. So if the teachers are not trained, if the leaders are not trained, leaders are the ones who are going to, train themselves first and then impart those trainings and those concepts to the teachers in the school. So it is very, very important that we have, digital transformation, the concept of digital transformation, the vision of digital transformation, the path of digital transformation, the budget related to it, because everything would cost money now. So what would this course entail? The course would entail digital transformation, artificial intelligence in education, generative AI, chat GPT, blockchain technology, quantum technology, and also digital ethics, AI, ethics in AI, and also, how do we teach them the concepts of digital citizenship? Now, the course is also very important in the sense that, these all are very, very more practical topics than theoretical topics. So they will be taught more in a practical way than in the theoretical way. Another key point of this course is it would be a evolving course as the technology itself is evolving. So before development of the course, during the development, during the how the course is delivered, and after also the course will keep on evolving with the new concepts. And since this is a course which can gain and benefit most from the industry experts, we would also have live master classes from the industry experts in this course. Now, I would also like to briefly talk about, the challenges of school education and challenges of education in general. We have been discussing about equity, equality, inclusion, reaching to the last child. That is our objective of the entire education system. But we all educators know where do we stand. And with the, UN SDG goals, 17 goals, and particularly the 4th goal of quality education and the 8th goal of decent employment and economic growth. And if these 2 goals are, put in order, all the goals, in fact, are interrelated with each other, and we will be able to achieve those goals by 2030. These are lofty goals. And now with the way that we have been going till now, these goals look very, very ambitious. For me, if technology can be an aid, if technology is considered as a co-pilot of teachers, if we can have individualized lesson plan using technology, we can meet the target of inclusion. If we can have, we have been talking about multilingualism. How far we have been able to reach, we all know. If through using AI, and that's quite possible, if we are able to, generate content in all the languages, if we are able to give quality global education, world-class education to each and every student, and this is quite possible with the aid of technology. So I would say that it's a very, very ambitious course, ambitious project of OP Jindal Global University. And as everyone said that, we all are learning on the job, but it would be best if we are equipped with all the knowledge and the skills. And, if we are able to bring up children who are not on high cognitive load, but are able to develop their higher order skills using technology, if they are able to bring, build their transversal skills to become life ready, that would be a wonderful thing. And that's quite possible. The literature is suggesting that, all the AI tools which are coming are suggesting it. But we also have to be mindful that with every opportunity, there are also challenges. So how do we, also look at the ethics? How do we, do the capacity building of teachers? How do we do the budget? And how do we integrate technology in the entire ecosystem? So with these words, I would like to, give my, end my thoughts here. And I would like to request Professor Deepak Mon to speak about his course.
Thank you, Professor Reshma. Hello, everyone. So we are coming from very diverse backgrounds. And my background is I'm an MBA, worked in corporate, worked in startups, and then got into education. It was a detour. And that kind of brings me to the point where Professor Reshma recently, like just few days back, I'd shared something with her on WhatsApp. She's from Delhi. So there was a news item where there's a very small chain in India. It's called Sitaram Divanchand. And this guy started on selling chole bhature, which is kind of an Indian deep fried snack for people from outside India. Started selling chole bhature on cycle. And this guy, now the news was that he has reached, his company has reached this outcome or turnover of 100 crores. And this is very fascinating. We talk about business, we talk about leadership. Is it the same? Is taking a school from, let's say, 100 children to 1,000 children, is it going to be the same as taking an outlet from, let's say, cycle to even 10 crores or whatever? It's very different, right? So I'll give you a very concrete example. We have just one Harvard, right? Or we have just one Oxford, but we do not judge them for just not being able to expand to any other countries of the world, right? Or not being able to go beyond a single campus. The criteria that we use for, let's say, judging Google or for judging apples of the world is very different as opposed to the criteria that we use for educational institutions. A very different example. Let me take the example that you all can relate to. The companies that I named, Google, Apple, Tesla, even the institutions that I named in Harvard, Oxford, where do their students come from? Where do their employees come from? They come from around the globe, right? They are attracting talent which comes from around the world. And where does your audience come from? Where do your students come from? Probably a 10-kilometer radius. That's it, right? And for most of the schools that we have around the world, where do the teachers who are going to run this organization, where do they come from? Probably again that same 10-kilometer radius. Now this is a huge difference. Your talent pool is limited. Your the kind of students that you have, if you are in a rural area, the kind of exposure, the kind of socioeconomic background they come from, you cannot pick and choose, right? So it is these challenges, within these challenges, we need to think about what kind of organization are we leading? How do we lead that organization towards something bigger? Worst case scenario is the kind of things that are put upon our schools across the world, I would say, by the centralized authorities. The child who is in a metro city, who has exposure, who has a different socioeconomic background, is expected to learn the same curriculum, learn through the same curriculum, do the same assessments, and the expectations are similar in terms of how the child will progress, right? These are the implications of a very monolithic kind of an education system that we have become. Within this, what Mr. Vinay said about, let's say, rules of the game, the theory says something, but the reality is something. Unless you get into the game, you do not understand the rules of the game, right? You also gave this example of injury to the child. It brought back a very interesting memory where I was reading about a consent form where the school was taking children to a trip to a museum, and the consent form said the children could be hurt because there are dangerous places like stairs. Dangerous places like stairs. That's the kind of level that we have reached. So thinking from the perspective of, let's say, strategic planning, change management, under all these constraints that we operate in, we need to find, as leaders, how do we lead our schools effectively, right? So that's kind of handling the administrative. The school is already running. There are issues, there are legal things to be sorted, there are administrative things to be done. And we also need to have we are expected to have certain vision and lead our schools towards that, right? But schools do not run by a set of rules. They actually are complex. They are living systems. Kind of, if we take the systems thinking perspective, they're living systems. Every single decision, every single policy interaction goes through that. Teachers, students, parents, curriculum, everything interacts. It's highly complex. And as school leaders, we usually are given an already existing machinery that we think that, okay, now run it efficiently. That's probably not the best way to look at this system. It is not a machine that can be repaired in a workshop. So as leaders, we should not just react to problems as they pop up. We need to think like architects, designing the environment where learning can truly thrive. It's like we should not plant, or we should not give water the leaves of the tree. We should water the soil, and we should actually create the conditions in which that tree can grow. Now, when we talk about this whole strategic planning, I would say we are trying to figure out where we are right now, where we want to go, and how do we go from this place to that place. Within, let's say, Indian education system, it's hugely diverse. The same would be true of Africa. The same would be true of, let's say, Latin America, or actually any country. Most of the countries in the world, barring maybe a few Nordic countries, etc., who are small examples. Singapore, I mean, leave those examples. Any country will have a complex system where there are very different kind of organizations. If I'm given the charge of a rural school in India, in my state, versus if I'm given the charge of the best boarding school in, let's say, in a hill state, the starting point itself is different. The resources are different. The history is different. So we need to think about all those and then assess what are our strengths and weaknesses, and then see, okay, now what can we do? Right? So that kind of a strategic plan is the thing that we need to create based on our own specific conditions. How do we make that change? One, we need to have a clear path. And again, we need to think in terms of the deeper assumptions that we have. That, okay, who is the audience here? Who is the ultimate beneficiary here? The ultimate goal of any educational institution, of any school, is to is the child. Now, with that child, what do we want to do? We want the child to learn. What do we want the child to learn? Curriculum. Well, and what is the success parameter? Grades, right? That's the standard definition. But that is a failing definition. That has, if that was true, I would say we would not have people who are failing in schools but succeeding in life. You would have come across several examples like that. People who struggle in schools actually end up succeeding in life. If our criteria, our parameters were the true measure of what life is like and what success looks like, right? So our job is not to just, let's say, tell people. It's to make our teachers, our parents, Mr. Vinay talked about the parents. That's a huge, huge thing. I mean, I would completely agree with that. The whole kind of parents that are there to make that mindset shift. And as Professor Saroj talked about the inclusivity part, we are getting, I mean, I cannot control it because if I'm in a metro city, I will get students from diverse different parts of the country because that's where the employment opportunities are. And if I'm getting students even within the same socioeconomic strata, the kind of linguistic diversity, the kind of cultural diversity, we need to kind of think about all that and incorporate that in our vision for the school, right? Now, how do I balance the administrative duties with my academic vision? As a school leader, we are kind of, because school is a complex organization, there is a huge list of to-do things. There is a daily kind of budgets of facilities to be managed, the infrastructure part, the human resources part, right? So we end up doing all that stuff. And what actually ends up happening is the really important part of the academic vision, it takes a hit. How do we think about that, right? How do we we say that we put our teachers first, but do we actually do that? Our teachers who are coming from that 10 square kilometer or 10-kilometer radius, are they ready for taking these children in the institution and turning them into something that our vision says that, okay, this is the kind of student I want to create? Are we empowering these teachers? Are we using, we generate a lot of data. No doubt about that. We generate a lot of data. Are we using that data? And what kind of a culture do we have? It's not about creating a policy, creating a rule. Rules do not create cultures. Actions do. Habits, repeated behaviors do. Right? We want to do all that stuff. But for that, we need to probably think long term, come out of the firefighting mode, reflect on what do we want to do. It cannot be the same vision for every school. It has to be different because your history is different, your resources are different, your circumstances are different. Now, if we take that, we will then see, okay, now as a leader, how capable I am, what are the things that I need to improve in myself, in my team, which will help me execute that vision, and then move towards the goal that we have. And Professor Reshma talked about the technology. We sometimes think that, okay, technology is super important. But sometimes we think that the technological advancements, they will revolutionize education. We get into this bandwagon of right now, artificial intelligence. But the same was said about radio, about TV, about computers, about internet, web 2.0, and now artificial intelligence. Every technology for past at least 100 plus years has promised to revolutionize education, but fundamentally schools are the same. They have not changed. Why? Because there is something wrong that we are doing at the very basic level, at the very our assumptions about what schools are supposed to do, how they are supposed to do, they are wrong. If technology could have changed anything, it would have changed that. We need to be aware of the technology. We need to bring in the technology, utilize it towards certain purpose. It is not going to solve our problems. So with that, I would say I'll stop right here. And thank you for your patience, for listening to me, and I'll wait for your questions. Vijay.
That was very insightful. Thank you, Professor Deepak. I think now it's time for the CEO, Mr. Bhavan, to share his kind words.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay, and thank you, all the panelists. I was feeling as if my course has already started. It was a superb masterclass. Professors did a fabulous job, and I want to congratulate the entire team. And Professor Mosmi, you were incredible with your team to put forward the entire program. The masters in the leadership and governance is absolutely the need of an hour. And I think so, everything which has been spoken is about how really you are going to empower the leaders. But taking a clue from Professor Deepak, this is absolutely true that the Indian school system is complex. And let me state this in a context that while India's schooling system is a paradox, on one hand, it is one of the world's largest, and on the other hand, one of the most fragmented and under-equipped to meet future demands. And that's the reason you will see technology would have evolved to the greatest heights, but the leaders wouldn't have equipped themselves to meet to the future demands. And we all know that we have more than 15 lakh schools, more, more than 24 crore students who have enrolled, and out of which we are more propagating about the private schools who produce more than 50% of the students population, and with 4 lakh schools which are unaided private schools. Here is where the alarming results that we read in the reports, which are like you would have read on a lot of these ACER reports, where the learning outcomes, particularly in language and numerical skills, are not up to the mark. So on this backdrop, when we see school leaders who really need to transform, this course is absolutely the need. I'm very happy with Education World partnering with the Jindal Global University and Boarding School Association of India. As Vinay sir mentioned, one of the important critical aspect which JGU has looked into the pastoral care and the mental well-being of the students and student well-being is not something that the school leaders would have gone through during their education. So that's very critically incorporated. One of the important things which I feel, which is like an observation from the market point of view, Indian school leaders today, they are expected to be performing like a CEO, but they are not trained for that, right? We know that we have entered into the era where legacy reputations are no longer enough. It's not like you were there in 100 or 200-year-old school, and probably you would not have been. I really mentioned it where, like, leaders are going to be, they have to train, they're going to evolve. And schools are not going to be judged by their buildings, but they are going to be judged by the ability that they build futures. And this is what leaders will be needed to be trained, because you are not just an administrator, you have to be a visionary leader. Means I was so impressed when Professor Raj really brought up this idea that are like that are the visionary leaders who are going to go on multi-front to build across the spectrum everything that an education can improve. Otherwise, you as a university would have told, hey, look, I am good to have produced a graduate who's fit for job, but not looking at the other spectrum, that how it's really going to germinate about the vision that needs to be inculcated in schools also. So it's very important that such kind of courses and professors like you who have plunged in your important man hours to curate this, and primarily which a leader which formally in the schooling environment lack training or a educational leadership or change management. We spoke about technology integration. This is all which is going to be integrally taught, not only by way of theory, by master classes, but I think so Professor Mosmi was very, very much clear that it's also going to be hands-on. I think so that's the underlying USP of the program. The hybrid nature is giving that each and every leader that opportunity. It's very important to all the school leaders to know that it's now time like you have the software update on your mobile phone. If you're not going to update, your phone is not going to work. And typically, we spoke about technological transformation, means AI in classroom, hybrid models, digital assessments. I mean, it needs leadership now. It does not need saying you have to be an engineer, but you need to know. I think so. Everyone mentioned saying it needs to get implemented. Understanding tech is becoming very, very important. We also know that we've spoken about there are so many data that is there, but admissions to pedagogy is also a leader that is going to come in, because I think so. You mentioned about saying something where if in a metro environment, everyone is going to come to work, but school must analyze and act on data. It's going to be integral part of the courseware that a leader is going to learn. I think so. You mentioned about, I think, Vinay sir again mentioned about the parent expectation, right from tiger till helicopter till all the parenting norms that are coming in. Now, I really pity a school leader, a principal, or the head of the school, where the so-called modern parents expect schools to deliver academics, that's 100%, the values, they're going to be soft skills, probably there's going to be global exposure, and moreover, now the safety norms, they all under one roof, right? That has to be managed. There are global benchmarks and competitiveness, right? So a leader must also learn saying if the best practices we speak about, that needs to bring in. So how do you manage and bring all the strands together? And most important, which we get always a request, is on teacher retention and well-being. Now we speak about everything, but how are you going to get the manpower? Because the burnout and attrition is the highest. It's not going to be easy for a leader. It's going to be continuous churn. And that has to be the habit of each and every of the leader, who's not only going to be professionally updated, but they also need to know that yes, while the mental health advocates are going to be there, you need to give a full package for your colleagues and teachers to be well rounded. So a few bullet points towards the end of my statement: from principal to be like a brand custodian, because each and we education world has been a prime propaganda of creating brands. I think so. Professor Deepak spoke about Harvard and Oxford. You don't say that, okay, I went to US and then went to Harvard. You say, I just went to Harvard. And this is how we want each education school leaders should create a brand, because school heads need to create an ecosystem. They are not just going to be focusing on one particular aspect. There are parent relations where school leaders need to spend 30 to 40% time. Probably branding and marketing has become very critical, because now you have social media to manage, you have campaigns to manage. There are a lot of this compliances and policy navigations which are getting very important. Now, every day a principal is going to sit in front of the computer, that boards are going to get messages. There are NEP mandates that are there. There are safety norms that are there. How really you are going to navigate. And that's the reason while you get on to a professional development program or a real master's degree that you're going to upgrade your skill is becoming not necessary. It's probably a norm. You have to get through that. And over and above the layer of diversity and inclusion that's going to be there. So lastly, ladies and gentlemen, and to all the educators in India and abroad, I think so the call to action is that if school must prepare students for an unknown future, I think so, then school leaders must first embrace the discomfort of transformation. And lastly, while we are going to deal with Gen Z, we cannot lead a school with a 21st or a 20th century mindset. It has to be the Gen Z mindset that needs to be understanding. And this is what I think so. At JGU, Professor Moshmi and the team has done a beautiful job to put all these courses together. And I'm sure each and every learner, I think so, I'm also learning, and we all are going to have a fabulous time, not only to upgrade, but get that qualification, which is going to put things in application. So thank you very much for having me over here, and looking forward for all the educators to use and practice this course, so that we as a Viksit Bharat, that is what we are dreaming about, If it does not start with leaders, we are not going to be leaders we are not going to create leaders for the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bhavin. I totally agree with you, and I think now it's time we can move on for the Q&A if all agree.
Yeah, sure. I've been replying some of them already while I was sitting and listening. I was doing dual task.
Really?
I've did some, I think so, but many of them are pending. You can pick up and summarize few of it, and I think so we'll take it one after the other.
Yes, I think we can just randomly pick, and we can just go ahead by answering.
I think so. One
on
of
the
them
call.
asked about what are the degrees this is about. So yes, this is a master's degree, and probably Professor Mosmi, you can talk about what this eventually going to entail, because someone wrote in French, which I just translated it, but they're asking
Yeah,
about what is this
translate it
degree
in
about.
French.
Ah.
So before I go ahead, and if in case we miss any of the questions to be answered, this is for all the audience. Please do not worry. I've dropped in the mail ID where you can list down all your questions. Admissionsonline@jgu.edu.in. I've also put in the chat the website link. Please go visit ahead, and 100% me and my team will be connecting back to you, irrespective of whatever doubts you guys are having. I think we can go ahead by picking up the questions.
So how are you going to do it, Vijay? You want to pick it up one after, or randomly we just pick it up one after the other?
I think we can go one after the other. Otherwise,
I think so. What I can
we can go from
summarize
the first.
is, and
Yes.
probably in the summary, I think so. A lot of these people who are asking, and Professor Mosmi, if you can really give in the gist, while the leadership courseware is getting clubbed together, how is the delivery going to happen? You're going to invite also some industry experts? How is the overall layer of this course, which is going to
Yes.
enhance the leadership? If you can throw some light on it.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to share that. Well, it's a 1-year online MA program that we have curated. There are 4 terms. In each term, there are 3 courses. There are 3 courses in each term worth 5 credits, so total 15 credits for every term. Okay, so the grand total is total 60 credits. And out of this, in the 4th term, the 4th term is completely research and project oriented. Okay, and these are 5 credit courses. Now, 5 credit involves 1 year, 1 hour of recorded lectures from the professors. Okay, per week, 1 hour of recorded lectures, 2.5 hours of self-study material on the topic for you to study in your own time. And on top of it, for an hour and a half, just like we are meeting here face to face through this webinar, we are going to have a live session once a week for an hour and a half for you to have a direct interaction with the faculty and the tutors, clear your doubts and ask questions. And during these live sessions, we're also going to invite some industry experts, okay, who will come and speak about that particular topic for, say, half an hour. 20 minutes, half an hour, and then you can interact with them and ask questions. So this is how we have designed the entire program. The first 3 terms, there are courses on leadership theory and practices, there are courses on resource management, there are courses on education policy, courses on inclusive education, pastoral care, courses on technology and AI in education, courses on teacher and staff professional development. Okay, so all these various aspects that you will have to deal with, and you're responsible as a educational leader, you're going to learn. And these alongside the 1 hour recorded lectures from us, which we'll be recording, we are recording, and we have already done most some of them. The 2.5 hours self-study material that we are going to give you also will involve case studies on those topics from different parts of the world, not just India, so that you get a global perspective with regards to what is happening in the domain of technology and AI in education in different parts of the world. What are educational leaders thinking in different parts of the world? How, in different contexts, as my colleague Deepak mentioned, the Indian context itself is extremely diverse, and there are different kinds of resources you have to begin with right at the beginning in those institutions, with remote rural village school in India versus a hill school. So how do you, within these contexts, which is very, very diverse, how do you really bring about change as an effective leader? So we are going to present different case studies and scenarios which you can learn from. Okay, and during these live sessions that we are going to have, as we hope that though we know that the school leaders are very busy, so that's the reason these live sessions will be only on weekends, on Saturdays, so that you can take out some time out of your weekend family time, at least for an hour and a half, so that you can engage with us, and you can engage also with each other. These
Got
live
it.
sessions are also supposed to be platforms for you to engage with each other, share with each other the challenges that you might be facing in your own context, and also share some of the best practices, some of the innovative things you're doing in your own context. So we have designed it in a way so that this is going to be a mutual learning platform for all of you.
No,
So this
great.
is
So,
how we have designed
no,
the
great.
entire program. And as I said, the final term will be purely based on training for doing action research, and also training for doing monitoring and evaluation. As educational leaders, you're constantly responsible also of doing monitoring and evaluation of each and every aspect of the institution, right? So how you're going to identify problem, how you're going to conduct action research, how you're going to do or get people to do proper monitoring and evaluation, and also developing actionable projects based on the knowledge that you have gained and the practices that you have shared with each other. You'll have to actually work on this, and we would try to see if you can also do these projects in a collaborative mode, because sometimes, despite the contextual differences, you can find people are dealing with similar kind of challenges.
True.
Okay, and when you go through the case studies, you will see, oh wow, I never imagined, like I remember the first time I went on and did a presentation of some of the challenges of inclusion we face here in OPJINDAL Global University, at a public university in Delhi. They were very surprised. They said, oh, we thought this is a problem we face in public universities, not in a university like OPJINDAL Global University, which we think is a much more, well-endowed university, and students come from a certain socioeconomic background. But they were not, they didn't know about the fact that we do get a lot of students who come on scholarship, a lot of students who also come from second language English background, which includes international students. Okay, so some of the challenges of inclusion with regards to language and some of the other issues, they were thinking that we don't face it here at OPJINDAL compared to a public university in India. So similarly, in the schooling context also, you might sometimes think that this is something, boarding school might not be facing, something that a government school in Delhi is facing. But once you interact with each other, you might also find certain commonalities of challenges and issues that you might be facing despite contextual differences. And then how can we look for solutions to those problems? Professor Reshma Vats talked about the SDG goals, right? So these are common goals, right? We all need to achieve quality education for all, but we'll need to find context-specific solution. The solution that will be applicable for a boarding school may not be applicable for a government school in
No,
Delhi.
sorry to interject, Professor Mosmi, but the follow-up question and the summary in the last question, Mr. Vijay, is education will in BSAI would be, and it's a suggestion, is it possible that while in hands-on project, we can collaborate where a leader who would have been trained, who's in practice of a particular school, will be happy, or if you have a module where some kind of an exchange, because as Vinay sir has been doing the professional development part, but there are these schools who will be happy to do a, what we call it is like in the schooling language, we call it as an exchange program. If an exchange program is incorporated where leaders can join our retreat, our PDs, and our schools, because boarding school does not have only boarding, but it has day-come boarding schools also as a member. And if we can give our leaders who are practitioners a chance to collaborate with some schools, groups, or this kind of sessions, I think so. This would be really interesting module to be embedded, overlaying some kind of an exchange program.
Yeah, that's what we are also hoping, that, and that's what we are going to do during the live sessions, weekly live sessions that we are going to have. We are going to create these opportunities. We hope through these, by the time we come to term 4, we should be able to create these opportunities for
Great.
these kind of exchanges.
No, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I think so, Vijay. We've overshooted time anyways. But over to you, Vijay.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank all the audiences for joining, and giving such a good response. And I'm quite surprised with the interest shown by the people. And I would thank you so much to each of our distinguished panelists for such an enriching and forward-thinking discussion. Your insights into the evolving landscapes of school leadership and governance were not only thought-provoking, but it was actually truly inspiring. Also, a heartfelt thank you as well to all the attendees who's joined us this evening. Your presence reflects a shared commitment to reimagining the future of education. So, as this session marks the beginning of an exciting journey with the launch of our MA in Education Leadership and Governance at OP Jindal Global University, a program designed to empower current and aspiring school leaders to drive innovation, inclusivity, and systematic change in education. We invite you all to explore the program. And I repeat myself, the website link is being put in the chat box. Please visit once. And on behalf of the university and the organizing team, thank you once again. And we look forward to the many such meaningful engagements in the future. And
Thank you
have
very
a
much,
great,
Vijay.
great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Good
everyone.
evening. Good
Good
evening.
evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.